Hello, everyone, and welcome to Modernize or Become Extinct. This is Jim McKeith, and joining me is Nick Hodges.
Hello, everybody.
So the theme of today is to talk with you about how important it is to modernize your app so that you can remain relevant and you can stay in front of the game, as it were. So the agendas, we're going to talk about where we came from, kind of the legacy that we share as software developers that have been around for a while, and then talk about some of the technologies of today and tomorrow, what they are, why they're relevant, why they're important, and then how you can adapt and adopt these technologies to remain relevant. And then we'll share with you some resources in moving forward. So I'm going to let Nick introduce himself really quick. You probably already know who he is, but you know.
Hey, that's me. I'm the Director of Product Management in Embarcadero, and I'm a longtime community member, as hopefully you know. I don't know. Maybe you don't know me. I've written 2 books on Delphi, a bunch of blog posts. I frequently speak at conferences and whatnot, and you can read my blog there and send me an email if you want to.
Yes, I highly recommend Nick's books. Check those out if you're not familiar with them. Nick's a great guy. I feel like I've known you since the beginning of the Delphi community almost.
You pretty much have, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
What about you, Jim?
My name is Jim McKeith. I am the lead worldwide developer evangelist for Embarcadero. I'm also the host of the podcast at Delphi.org, longtime developer, trainer, speaker, and author as well. I don't have as many full books as Nick does, but I have contributed to a few books that are out there published on software development topics. My claim to fame, though, is I invented and patented swiped unlock back in 2000. So if you look at those patent numbers,
and you got millions for it, right?
That's right. I retired to a small island, and
Swipe to unlock.
Swipe to unlock. Yes, drawing a geometric shape to authenticate yourself to a computer system, and turns out a line is a geometric shape. Anyway,
There you go.
So
Good for you. That's cool.
yeah, it is cool. I get to put that on my slides. That's really the benefit of that.
That's the best part of it, right?
That is. So our legacy, where we came from, Delphi was introduced in 1995 for 16 bits. Can you believe that, Nick? It's 1995. That was a long time ago.
I was there. I was actually at the launch event on February 14th, 1995 at SD West 95 when Anders Heilsberg introduced Delphi 1.0. I was there. It's pretty exciting.
When Delphi was...
High point in my life.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was not there for that, but I started using Delphi as of Delphi 2, actually. I was a Turbo Pascal developer for years before that, but I missed Delphi 1. But when
I think we all agree it's the best Windows development tool. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is it was revolutionary. It was way ahead of the time, and it stayed ahead of its time for quite a while. It continued to just really be the best tool, and it still is today the best tool for Windows development.
Yep, wrapped up the Windows API quite neatly with a VCL.
It did.
I remember being amazed at things like T-Brush and T-Point and all the different classes that wrapped up everything in the Windows API.
Well, it did a good job in that you could look at documentation on how to do things in Windows, and it would say, oh, you need to get a Windows handle, or you need to get a brush, whatever, and you're like, oh, and you look at, and in Delphi we have, like you said, the T-Brush or whatever, and it's like, oh, well, I have this really nice wrapper version of the Windows API that it's so much easier to work with. It's object-oriented. And
oh, yeah, it was great.
Type safe. And
those were the days.
Yep. So
but they're still the days now.
They are still the days now. But so at the time, Delphi was great, had all this great Windows API wrapper. It had database access baked in it from the ground up, which was huge. Made it so easy to deal with database applications. Really focused on building your fat client-server type applications for Windows Desktop, Windows Server.
And it's evolved since then, yeah.
Yes, and so we're going to talk some more about what the evolution of Delphi looks like.
Excellent.
So we're going to talk about technology of today and tomorrow.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
Technology of today and tomorrow. Sounds good.
So Windows has come a long ways. Delphi was introduced for Windows 3.1, if you can believe that.
I remember those days, yes.
And then Windows 95 came out shortly after that.
I remember, and Windows 2.0 came out, or Delphi 2.0 came out, and the first thing I did was I allocated an integer the size of all the memory in my machine. Remember, you could only go up to, what, 64K or something with an integer.
Yes.
32-bit went up to 2 trillion or something. I don't even know what the number is. 2 to the 32. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I confess I don't know the number, but it's a big number.
It's a big number. 4 billion. That must be what it is. 4 billion. Okay. I'll look it up later.
But Microsoft's pretty serious about Windows 10, I think. They're not messing around. They're adding all kinds of new stuff to it.
Yeah, so Windows 10 is a pretty big deal. Microsoft says it's the last version of Windows. They're just going to keep releasing updates to Windows 10. So it's going to continue to be Windows 10, kind of like Apple's been doing with Mac OS 10 for a while now. It's been, 10.1,
and
10.2.
we're actually doing that with RAD Studio 10.
Yes, that's true. We are.
10's a good number. 10's a great number.
It is a great number. So Windows 10 was a free update. If you had a previous version of Windows from XP or newer, I think it was, then you got a free upgrade to Windows 10, and that resulted...
Free is good.
Free is good. Resulted in the fastest uptake.
Free is my favorite price.
If there's a price involved, I like free. That's true.
Free's my favorite one. Yeah, it really did update quickly. There's no reason not to be on Windows 10. It's a great operating system.
It is. It combines like the best stuff of Windows 7, which Windows 7 was kind of the last one that had all that really good, strong desktop feel. And then Windows 8, they introduced this more mobile-looking feel. And Windows 10's like, okay, let's get this right. So it took all the good stuff from Windows 7, some of the good stuff from Windows 8, updated it all, put it together nicely in a nice package.
Yes, they did. Built a desktop bridge to allow you to put Windows applications in the store. Universal Windows platform apps are based in RT, so that's cool.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
Yeah, Windows 7 and Windows 8 really started favoring these managed code applications, whereas Windows 10 remakes the native app as a first-class citizen. So as you mentioned, the Windows Store with the desktop bridge enables you to get your apps in the Windows Store. So that's really great, so that you can actually have full native desktop applications distributed through the Windows Store. And just like
what's the only development tool that supports the Windows Store, Jim?
You know what? For native applications, it's Delphi.
That's right.
Delphi and C++ Builder, RAD Studio.
That's right.
And this is something that I think is really huge, is that there are the Microsoft's tools are all focused around managed code in the Windows Store, like JavaScript. And, JavaScript's nice, but I don't want to build anything that complicated in JavaScript. I learned my lesson a long time ago on that one.
I don't know anybody. Well, I shouldn't say I don't know anybody, but I mean, JavaScript is kind of like writing assembler.
Yes.
Does anybody? Somebody likes that, but not too many people.
No. So with Delphi and C++ Builder, and actually our next slide here is going to talk about this, we have this fantastic Windows 10 support. We've been right on top of the Windows 10 releases or features, rolling out new features around that with our tools, including desktop bridge support for Windows Store, so you can build a native app, bundle it, and have it ready to deploy through the Windows Store, where you can do enterprise distribution, you can do ad hoc distribution, or you can do distribution to the store where Microsoft will manage the money for you.
Which is really cool.
It is. We have all the styles, a lot of great new components. Some of the new components we have are really great. And the cool thing actually is our VCL components that have all that new Windows 10 functionality and theming will actually work on earlier versions of Windows.
Yes, you can build an application that'll run and work like Windows 10, but it'll also have the Windows 10 controls, but it'll run on Windows 7 and 8.
Yes, and although technically we don't officially support Windows XP because Microsoft end-of-lifed it, I know people that are still developing under Windows XP and for Windows XP with Delphi.
Wow, that's kind of scary, but hey, okay.
It is. and actually, I had a slide earlier talked about this, that Windows 10's adoption is higher than actually higher than Windows XP. For the longest time, Windows XP was a big holdout, but Windows 10's actually past XP now.
Cool. Excellent. And we provide all the support you need.
Yes, we do.
Windows 10.
I'll show you a real quick demo here of the Windows 10 support. This is our notifications sample application. And I can go here, project, options. And if I come here to appearance, this is where all our styles are installed. And you'll see I have this nice selection of Windows 10 styles. Actually, let's go ahead and change this to Windows 10 purple, just because that sounds cool. Also over here on the tool palette, we have a new Windows 10 category, which has some great Windows 10 new controls in here. I'm just going to throw this calendar picker down. And let's give it a run. So now we got our nice fancy Windows 10 purple style and this really sleek looking calendar picker. This calendar picker, even though it's designed for Windows 10, still works under other OSs like Windows 8 or Windows 7. And gives you this nice Windows 10 type functionality. And then this does notifications, so I can have it show me a notification there. But you know, that's one thing. Check this out. Over here, under Target Platform, Win32, I can now select Application Store. And when I build this, actually if I come here to Project Deployment, here's the bundle. The app package is going to build for the Windows Store. It includes the artwork that's necessary for it. And if I run it, it's going to say compile, build, link, deploy, signing. And then it's going to give me a message here that, hey, your AppX is actually in an Explorer folder. So just jump over here. And here it is right there. There's the AppX I just built. And I can double click on it. And it says, hey, do you want to install this? So this AppX could be distributed, put up on my website for download. I could upload it to the Windows Store so it can be distributed that way, or I can distribute it through an enterprise application store. And all I do now is click install. It's installed. I can launch it from here. And here it is running just like before. And I can also go into my start menu and go down and find the notifications projects. That's the one. This is the desktop version. This is the new AppX version. So see, it's got the nice icon in here that I can resize. All right, just like I would expect to be able to do. And watch this. This is really cool. Uninstall. Yes. And it uninstalled the AppX. That is cool because it's using the sandbox provided by Windows 10. So very cool. Be able to build and deploy your applications through AppXs in the Windows Store. For some strange reason, I just lost Nick. We actually did this whole presentation together and recorded it all. But when I was editing the recording together, he disappeared from the recording at this point. So this is Jim. You're going to have me for the remainder of this, although Nick does have a demo here that he got me, and as well as the he'll be available for the Q&A. So sorry about that. You'll have to use your imaginations and imagine he is here providing poignant commentary to the process. At this point, though, we're going to start talking about mobile. This is a graph that shows the mobile tipping point. This is something that we heard was coming for a while, and it happened, and we've moved beyond it now. This is something that occurred in 2013. We shipped more mobile devices than desktop devices. And so what we have now is, as Nick pointed out, that only people that don't want to have a mobile device for some reason don't have one. Everybody else has a mobile device. And so we have that most of our desktop users also have one or more mobile devices, while there's also a large segment of people that only are mobile. They're mobile only, don't have a desktop. And so this makes mobile such a valuable platform to target. And so it's so important that you're considering mobile in your application strategies. And this isn't isolated to just personal use. This is also incredibly popular in enterprise and businesses. So here is the device shipments for 2015. I don't have 2016 numbers yet. This is from Gartner as of April. 54% of the devices shipped last year were Android devices. That is crazy because only 11%, almost 12% were Windows, and just a little bit more than that was iOS and OS X combined. And most of that is iOS. So that is a lot of mobile devices that are shipping right now, more than Windows. Now here, if you look at users, and so this is based on users visiting websites, still barely, the majority is 40%, or well, Windows has 40%, but the majority are other platforms, which non-Windows, and the majority of that is mobile, whether it be Android or iOS, it makes up the majority of the visits to websites. We're not talking about targeting web development, but just so you have an idea of where people are spending their time, what people are using to get things done. And predominantly people are turning towards their mobile devices to get things done. So that's where our FireMonkey framework comes in. FireMonkey framework supports development for iOS, macOS, and Android in addition to Windows. So our Delphi that started out on Windows with the best Windows platform has now expanded to be the best mobile and OS X platform. It's really cool actually because of how productive Delphi brought this incredible productive philosophy from Windows to all these platforms. And so not only are you way more productive on each of these platforms than using other tools, but you're able to leverage that code across all 4 platforms, which just makes for incredible productivity. I've done presentations where I've had people there that aren't familiar with Delphi, and I'm showing off all these things, and this guy raises his hand and he goes, "I've been an Android developer for years, and I see you doing all these demos, but you're not writing very much code. What's going on here?" And everybody else in the room just smiled, nodded, because they know that's what Delphi brings to the table. And C++ Builder. It brings that ability to get a lot done with very little effort. But just like Windows lets you reach down and grab those Windows APIs with Delphi, Delphi support for Android, iOS, and macOS does that same thing. So you have that high level of productivity, but you can also reach down and grab those platform APIs. And so you're not boxed in, you're just productive. So you have that high level where you're dropping components, setting properties, you're writing a lot of code, and you're still reaching down and grabbing platform APIs as you need to. The app tethering technology, which we're not going to really get into a whole lot, gives you the ability to take existing VCL applications and extend the functionality onto a mobile device. So the mobile device can connect to your VCL application and provide some level of functionality and real-time interactivity. Let's do a real quick demo of mobilization. I don't really have time to get into a lot of functionality here for the mobile because it's a huge, expansive framework with components you can just drop down to access sensors, cameras, you name it, and it's baked in. But I'm going to show you this example here, which is our multi-view demo, because I think it's a great example of that smart behavior I was talking about, where it's able to just adapt and behave appropriately on different platforms. And I can show you this right here in the IDE. So this is the multi-view. And so we have this panel here on the left and a panel on the right. So you have this kind of pops over it. And I'll run this here so you can see what this looks like. And so here it is on Windows, and it's in this collapsed view right now. So I can tap right here, and it opens up and gives me a list of items, and I can select one of those items. Or I can select those items while it's collapsed as well. So that's the platform default behavior while in Windows. Now, as soon as I run it on a mobile device, it's going to go into drawer mode. This would be a mobile, like a phone. So the narrow screen. And so in this mode, you can swipe from the left, and look at that. It just comes out. This is like my favorite UI paradigm, the drawer, where it just, boop, swipe it out, select the item, boop, goes away. Or you can use the hamburger icon here, and it pops out again. So that's the drawer mode. So if I run this on a phone, it's going to switch to drawer mode. Then if I run it on a tablet, it's going to go to popover mode, which is it's going to pop down like this, because it has that more tablet real estate, unless you're in landscape on a tablet, and then it will go back to the docked panel, which is where it takes up that landscape mode. So this is how it's going to behave on the different devices. But then you can also customize it. You can force it into different behaviors. So if you're like, you know what, I always want it to be navigation pane because I like that little peekaboo window here. You can do that. You can do custom where you have it behave as a whatever you want it to do. In this case, it's going to be a popover. The drawer, in my opinion, drawer everywhere. It's always a drawer because it's just so cool. So that's all highly customizable. Now I want to show you this here, though. You can, in the IDE, you can preview what this is going to look like on different platforms. And so watch a couple things here. First of all, when I switch from Windows to Android, you notice everything looks differently now. So now these are Android tab controls here with the little underline on them, just like you would expect to see on an Android because it's now an Android control. Then I can go look at it, what it would look like on OS 10. And here it is on OS 10, looking like an OS 10 control. Now watch this. When I switch to iOS, watch these tabs on the tab control. They jump to the bottom. And that's because Apple says on iOS, your tabs should be at the bottom. And so the tabs are set to platform default behavior, so they automatically jump to the correct location for the platform they're on. Now you can, again, override that just like you can with the multi-view. But the default is it's going to behave the way the platform defines it. This is why I call them smart styles and smart themes, is because it not only looks and behaves the right way, but it becomes the correct for that platform. Now this is also really cool here. You can come in here and the idea is you define your user interface as a master, the master level. But then you're like, you know what? On the iPad or let's say the 3.5 inch iPhone, if someone's actually running this on a 3.5 inch iPhone, I need to change the way this is going to look. So you come in here and select this and you then reprogram it. See how I told you it's going to look like on the iPhone, how it automatically hides it? It did that for me automatically. But it's creating a diff view here. And so now I can come in here and I can change the UI. I can hide things. I can move things around, make things smaller, bigger, whatever I want to do. And that will only show up when it's ran on a 3.5 inch iPhone. Everywhere else, it will use the master view. And then again, if I'm like, you know what, if it's on a big Android tablet, I need to change that behavior. And you come here and change that for the Android tablet. And then if you only define a few of these, it's going to automatically pick the one that's most closely related to the one that it's currently running on. So in this case, if it's running on an iPhone 4 inch, it'll probably pick the 3.5 inch customizations there. This makes you incredibly productive because the reality is 99% of the time, the master is going to be exactly the layout you want to have because it's so flexible and with that smart intelligence in there. But every now and then you're going to want to do a little customization, a little tweaking. Maybe 99% is a little generous. Let's say 75, 80% of the time, this is enough. But when you want to have that customized behavior, especially when you get into smartwatches or Google Glass or something like that, you're going to want to change your UI around. And this makes it really easy to do that. And it's also incredibly easy to target the platform. You just come in here, select which platform you want to target. And I don't have any devices connected right now, but if I did, I would just hit refresh. It'd give me a list of devices. I'd select the device I want to connect to, and it would deploy it right to that device. So we have lots of other demos on this. I don't have time to go through all of it right now, but very cool, very productive to get you a lot of work done on mobile development. I wish Nick was online for this part because he is being a huge advocate of decoupling code or making it highly decoupled. Now, clearly can't decouple everything completely because then nothing would work together. But the example he gave actually was that Lego blocks are more useful than Duplo blocks. Now, Duplo blocks are the bigger preschool version of Legos. And because the Lego blocks are smaller, you're able to do more with them. They're more flexible in what they're able to do. And so he gives that as an example of what you really want to do is create what we're talking about here, microservices. Microservices are a service that is very specific, very specialized, that does one thing well. And then these services all work together to build the large complex systems. The modular approach facilitates reusability, makes it easier to debug individual pieces, and makes for an overall stronger system. Now, this is something we've been talking about working on for a while, but what's finally made this possible and very successful is REST services. REST services is the successor to SOAP-based services. SOAP was really big a while ago. We introduced some great support, still have great support for SOAP services, but now it's all about REST. REST stands for Representational State Transfer, and it's based on HTTP, whereas SOAP was a strong standard. REST is kind of a recommendation or a philosophy, if you will. So it's kind of loose standard, or it's not a standard, it's kind of a loose philosophy. And generally speaking, though, it uses JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, which is much lighter weight than XML. And when you combine that with the HTTP protocol, and the HTTP protocol actually has a number of verbs built into it, get, put, post, etc. It just uses this. It's built into the HTTP protocol we've been using for years for the web, is now being used for these REST services. It's very, very powerful, very scalable. The result, it's a very robust system. It powers all the web services today and a number of hardware APIs, and is what's making microservices a huge success. Now, if you're wanting to build microservices, we have a solution called RAD Server. It's actually a separate product from RAD Studio, Delphi, and C++ Builder, but it ships with RAD Studio, C++ Builder, and Delphi, just like Interbase does. It is a turnkey, ready-to-go backend for Delphi and C++ Builder applications. It has built-in user management, API analytics, access control, etc. It powers push notifications, location, proximity data centralization, all the things you need to have in a microservice. So you're able to build multiple RAD server instances, each one doing a specialized thing, able to talk to each other via REST services, accessing enterprise data, user authentication, all that stuff's baked in and it's ready to go. And it's really, really easy to build and get going with. And actually, Nick has a demo for us of a RAD server.
Okay, Jim, so here I am in RAD Studio Berlin Anniversary Edition. And I'm going to open up a couple of demo projects that illustrate some of the power of RAD Server. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this sample server, which basically will run inside of the development server that runs inside of RAD Studio. So I'm going to run this server outside of the browser, and you can see here that it logs everything that it does, including opening up endpoints. And there's a number of different endpoints that you can open up here. And I'm going to open up a browser, and you see the version number there. It gives me version 2.1 of the server, Embarcadero EMS. But if I go to, say, test, you'll notice that I get a whole bunch of data, all kinds of data about ships and all kinds of stuff. Now, that's the server. I'm going to leave it running. And you'll notice that that data, by the way, was in JSON format. It's all in JSON. So now I'm going to open up a different application. That is the FireDAC client, which knows how to talk to the server based on the URL ports, the proxy ports, and the EMS provider, and the resource name, test, what we looked at before. And I'm actually going to get a nice, neat client-server database application with the server being the REST table, REST API, and the client using the REST client applications, that REST client components that Jim is going to show you, to create a master detail record. And you can see here that the master detail depends on which item you've selected. And you'll notice if I come down here to 1997, change that to 2016, scroll off that record, post updates, get the tables again, you'll notice that that date, where is it? Whoops, which one was it? 26, there it is, 2016, from the dates that were all in the 90s before. So that is a RAD server in a nutshell. Again, the server application itself is an API endpoint. The client is a REST client, and it's passing JSON-based data back and forth over HTTPI, enabling a master detail relationship, just like that. And let's just really quickly,
I'll shut these both down, and we'll just really quickly look at the code for the client. And you can see that it is very minimal. It just posts updates and calls get data on the client components that are found in the data module here. And then the server is simply a resource package that has a set of queries on it based upon a schema adapter and connections and all that. This is all FireDAC in action. But the cool part is if you look at the code, you'll notice that the code's pretty minimal. It just opens an order, opens a query. They're connected together as a master detail. Save that out to a stream and send that stream as application JSON. You'll notice that its storage format is set to JSON. It does all the work of turning the data into a JSON object, transmitting that object over the REST endpoint, ready to go. Now, if you come up here, you'll notice that this resource module has a resource name of test. That's the resource name that we typed into the entry up above. And then there's a call to get records and a call to post updates, both of which is a get call and a post call. And those are the endpoints. And declaring a new endpoint is as simple as declaring an attribute name, endpoint name with the name of the endpoint on it, on a method. And then that method just becomes the endpoint that you process. You get a context, you get a request, and you can fill in the response all you want, and you're ready to go. It's that simple. So back to you, Jim.
Having that RAD server on the back end is important, but having a good REST client library on the front end is also important because you can consume that RAD server endpoint or you can consume other endpoints that are out across the web, and they're everywhere. Every website that has any kind of data or service is exposed through a REST service, it seems like anymore. There are, so the REST client library includes the ability to easily connect and consume these REST services. It includes some really powerful JSON parsing libraries, a whole slew of authentication options, including OAuth 2. It can convert JSON into a data set, so it can be bound to your user interface. This is really, really powerful. And when I do demos on this, it blows people away. There's a powerful REST debugger you can use to quickly prototype and test REST services, and goes a long way in just getting you off the ground running really quickly. So you can use the REST client library, or we actually have other libraries that are built around consuming backend as a service that you can also use for consuming certain specific types of backends that have a wide variety of services. So let's do a real quick demo of the REST client library. This is a website called Spitcast that just happens to, well, what it does is it provides surf forecasts in California, and it happens to have an API for it. I like this one because it's got a few different endpoints, and it's pretty small data that's easy to chew on for demo purposes. But what I'm going to show you here works across a huge variety of REST endpoints. Now, I'm going to share a quick story. I was down in Brazil, and I was talking to this guy that had a large group of .NET C# developers. I think it was like 100 developers. And his boss came to him and said, hey, I want us to build a mobile client. And he's like, okay, we're doing C#, so we should look at Xamarin. Xamarin's, based on C#. And so he figured that he would do a proof of concept first before he turned his developers loose on Xamarin. And so I figured a REST client, it's a pretty common thing you got to do, and it's something they're going to have to do anyway, connect and consume their REST service. So he figured he'd give himself a week to build a REST client. So I was talking to him, and he was about a week into this, and he said he was really frustrated. Not only did he find he had to build both Android and iOS separately, which he was kind of expecting it to be the single, code to target both, but that's not the reality. But he was also finding it was just a lot slower, a lot more tedious. And so I'm sitting here, and he's telling me how terrible this is going for him, and I'm starting to smile. And I said, I can build you a REST client in 5 minutes. And he's like, no. I said, yeah, with Delphi, I can build a REST client in 5 minutes. So here I'm going to show you. We're going to build this REST client here. So I'm going to go here to this API spot. This is listing of all the spots. And I'm just going to take this endpoint here and copy it to the clipboard. And we'll go in here, and there's a tool called the REST debugger. And I'm going to paste this URL in here, like that, and I hit send request, and this goes out and hits that REST endpoint, and it pulls back. Here's the JSON data, all nicely formatted for me. But then this is the cool part here. I go to the tabular data tab, and this has gone through and looked at that JSON and said, hey, this JSON is an array of data, and so we're just going to convert this into a data set. And so that's made a data set for me. Now watch this. This is really cool. I'm going to go over here and hit this copy components button. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to point out there's options in here for authentication, passing parameters. You can do body parameters, URL segments, URL parameters. I mean, that's the whole, everything you need. Here's proxy support, etc. But we don't need that for now. I'm going to come here and hit copy components. And what that's done is it's copied the components I need to the clipboard to connect to that REST service. So now I come over here and I'm going to say, create a new Delphi application. And I'm going to hit paste. And here are the REST components I need. So this is the REST client. This is the guy that actually goes out and makes the connection to the REST server. This is a REST request. So you can have multiple requests that go through the same client. Each request could have different parameters, different options, specify different resources, etc. And then it gets a response back from that REST request that gets stored in here. Now, if I want to take that REST response and put it into a data set, I use the REST response dataset adapter, and I stick it into a FireDAC FD mem table, which is an incredibly awesome component. Now, I'm going to go here and let's get a list view, and put that down here. And I'm going to use our bind visually. And, first of all, let's run this request. REST request, right click, execute. Says, yep. 200 okay, and look at that here. I've got my columns unpopulated in my FD mem table. There's county name, latitude, longitude, spot ID. So I'm going to put the spot name in that list view as the text, and let's set the sync up here. That just means it's going to scroll. Yes, create that connection there, and let's do the county name is the header on here. So look at that at design time. This is one of the things that's always set Delphi and C++ Builder apart is the fact that you could get design time data. I've just got design time data from a REST service. I mean, it's so cool. So we see it's working. I'm just going to write a line of code here. Say REST client dot REST request dot execute. See, if I type the right thing, it actually works. So now I can run this, and it went out and connected to that REST service and pulled down the data for me here. Now, there's nothing else this does. It just lists out the spots, but I could really easily have an event where I tap on one of these list items, and it could then bring out the detailed view of each individual spot. And I just built this for Windows, but I could go through here and say, hey, let's build it for iOS, let's build it for Android, and target any other mobile device, and I'm done. I built a REST client that will run across all those platforms that quick. And I explained it in the process. Now, I showed the FireDAC FD mem table there, but let's talk about FireDAC some more. FireDAC is our new robust universal data access framework. Now, as I talked about before, one of the things that really set Delphi and C++ Builder apart from the beginning is that it had database access baked in as a core concept of the tool. So that was with the BDE. BDE was great. It was ahead of its time, but it was a little heavy. It was a little complicated to install, and it was, subject to, wasn't the best performance and subject to breaking easily. And so over time, it was deprecated. It was replaced with a few other frameworks, but none of those other frameworks really had the full feature set of the BDE. And we're kind of, started to resign ourselves. Well, maybe, just the fact the BDE was so rich in features made it fragile. And so we're just not going to have that again because it's important to have a robust framework. Enter FireDAC. FireDAC has all that functionality of the BDE. It's the Universal Data Access Framework. There's a single TFD query, and that works against all those databases you see there. Interbase, SQLite, etc. Same FD query component. the FD connection component. You just specify what driver to use, and it knows how to connect to that database. So it's not a lowest common denominator. It actually unlocks the features that are specific to these individual databases, but it also gives you the ability to not have to worry about those features if you don't want to. It is also a universal bidirectional data access in that you can do that browsing through a cursor forward and backward. You can modify data and have the data posted back to the database. All that functionality that we loved in the BD but thought we'd lost is back in a robust, fast data access framework. Kerry Jensen, who's a longtime luminary, especially around data access, said he was working with a client recently, and the client was using some older data access framework. I don't remember what it said it was specifically, and they were experiencing some problem. And it's like, well, we could try switching this out to FireDAC and see if that fixes this strange problem you're running into with this database. And so they did, and it didn't take that much effort because FireDAC is built on the T dataset, so it's compatible conceptually with all the other T dataset descendant data access frameworks out there. And not only did switching to FireDAC fix this strange problem they're having, but the performance they had just skyrocketed. He said he couldn't believe how much faster it was, and they actually had some other problems that they were experiencing from data access, just the latency. But they're like, well, that's just the way it's going to be because we're accessing these databases remotely. And all of a sudden, boom, things were so fast. They're getting stuff done. All these latency issues disappeared on them. And it was just a huge, huge improvement. So he said now he tells everybody, I don't care what you're using. If it's an older data access framework, you got to upgrade to a recent version of FireDAC. It is just that important because it's going to give you that huge speed increase. Plus, FireDAC is an incredibly powerful, robust framework with some amazing tools in it, amazing functionality in it. Part of that functionality is support for the MongoDB NoSQL database. NoSQL it's a concept that's been around for a long time, but recently with the advent of big data and real-time web applications, it's gotten a lot more popularity. And so NoSQL is the idea of not only SQL, it's the idea that its database storage is not just about SQL. It can be a wider concept. So these databases are more like a document access storage or a key value pair or graph storage or something like that, where you're not just storing things in columns and rows, but instead you're storing more irregular shaped data, if you will. It supports some horizontal scaling to clusters so that you can have some really high speed. There's some trade-offs, pros and cons around that, but there's a lot of advantages to being able to use a NoSQL database, MongoDB being one of the most popular ones. And FireDAC includes support for MongoDB with all of the other databases that it supports. So let's have a real quick FireDAC demo. Now I want to create a sample, a demo here that showed the flexibility and power of local SQL, but also hopefully is easy to follow and understand. So hopefully that's what I've accomplished here. Hopefully at least it's really cool. So here what we have is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entirely different data sets. Okay, we have ADO data set, FD memtable, IBX, T-client data set, and a DB Express data set. All right, and so each of these are pulling a different set of data down, and we're going to query across all these using local SQL. So let's walk through this here. I have a DB Express customers table, a REST components here that are going out and querying a REST service and populating a client data set. Now, normally I would populate an FD mem table, but I wanted to use a T-client data set just to mix things up and show flexibility. Here we're using IBX to get our sales table. Here I'm using an FD mem table and I'm populating it via code. So right here I'm adding in some records into it. So this is a simple table that's just going to provide a union between two different tables. I've also saved it off to a file so that I can load it at design time, so that makes it easier to demo, but it also can be populated via code. And then lastly, I have ADO connecting to a access database, and it's getting our regions table. Okay, so whatever data source you're using, any T dataset descendant, these are all the ones we happen to ship, but it could be a third-party T dataset descendant. Doesn't matter. However you're going to connect to a database, however you're going to populate a data set, do that. Then you're going to put down your FD connection and specify the driver name of SQLite. Remember, also put down your wait cursor. It's going to be specific to whichever platform you're on. And then you're going to put down your local SQL component. So local SQL component is specified the FD connection that we put down that's pointing to SQLite. And then we come into our datasets property. And in this collection here, we specify all of the datasets we want. So I have the CDS REST, and then I've given it a friendly name of REST. So the cool thing is about the friendly name is in my SQL I'm going to write, I just reference it by that friendly name here. So the customers table becomes customers. Okay, very cool there. This provides us a nice little layer of indirection to those components, so we're not stuck to whatever the table name or component name is for the source. Once you've done that, then you put down your FD query or FD command. In this case, I'm using a query. Point it to the same connection here, so FD connection, and write your SQL. Now, what I have here is a join that's going to go through and join users tables, even with an outer join down here. Ooh, exciting stuff. Before I run that, I'm going to do a little spelunking. So we'll come up here, and I'll just put a little comment on this. And so let's go ahead and do select star from customers. So this is going to do a local query against this data set. There we go. There's our customers table. This is really cool. Watch this. I can do a SQL query against a REST data source. Oh my goodness, that is so cool. Let me go ahead and resize this here so you can see some of those columns. With REST JSON, there's nothing that specifies the column width, and so all the columns are huge, but that's okay. You can see the data's there. Okay, so now let's do a query against IBX. That's the sales table. Execute, and you can see that. And now we're going to do a query against the in-memory data set, the FDMM table. Now, the cool thing here is this data set was populated from code. So anytime you have some data that is in columns and rows and you think, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could run a SQL query against this data? Guess what? Now you can. Watch this. I think it's called REST sales reps. That's got a long one because it's a one-to-one relationship here. So it's the ID, the REST ID, which comes from here, and the sales rep from here. So it's just joining those two values together so that I can do a join for it. Okay, so I'm not going to do the ADO, behaves the same way, but this is really cool, really exciting that I can run a SQL statement against a REST data source. I can run a SQL query statement against an in-memory data set that was populated in code. And now, for the coolest part ever, is I can actually do a join across all these different data sources. Watch this. Boom! Look at that. I just did a query across a REST data source, across an in-memory data set, across access table, interbase, IB Express, whatever. It doesn't matter. I can do queries against it. Just one column from each table here just to show that I'm connected to them. But very cool stuff. So you can see here, this is region descriptions.outer join. So we scroll down to the bottom, we see some of those records are missing. That's okay. Outer join works. Cool stuff. Very cool. Very exciting. This is hopefully you're excited about this. You're as excited about this as I am because this is really cool stuff. Very amazing to be able to do this and to do it so simply. All you have to do is include the connection, the local SQL component, and then your query, and you're off to the races. Internet of Things is one of these, I guess, buzzwords you hear a lot about, but a lot of people just really aren't quite sure what it is. Basically, the idea is everyday objects have network connectivity, which leads to this proliferation of smart devices and connected devices. Nick was sharing a story that his good friend and neighbor just got a new house and got a fridge installed with it and discovered his fridge connects to the Wi-Fi and he can talk to his fridge over his smartphone and his stove. So he can, I don't know what you talk to your fridge about. I guess you could ask your fridge how many eggs you have left over. Maybe it has a webcam inside. So you can see inside the fridge from the store and know what you need to get, and then turn the stove on so it can be preheating. So when you get home, you can put your food right in the stove and have it cook it. This is something that we've always thought about was going to happen in the future. Well, it's happening today. All the stuff we're talking about is happening today or has already happened. The Internet of Things is here. Devices are connected like crazy. Whenever I open up a device or open up a Bluetooth pairing on my phone, I get this huge list of all these possible things to connect to, and there's just so many different options out there. One of which I don't even have on the slide and I totally forgot, is beacons. Beacons are this new technology based on Bluetooth LE that enables you to do proximity and indoor location. We have beacon components baked in. We have Bluetooth LE components. We have app tethering components, REST components, and we have these incredible IoT components. So for example, let's say you wanted to talk to a heart rate monitor and build an app that talked to heart rate monitors. You can go into our package manager, our Get It package manager, and type heart rate monitor. It'll come up and say, hey, what type of heart rate monitor is it? Or you just want to connect to a generic heart rate monitor. You're like, I'm just going to connect to a generic heart rate monitor that works across all heart rate monitors. You select that package, it installs it, gives you a component, you drop the component on the form, and you're able to talk to a heart rate monitor that quickly from Windows, iOS, Android, and Mac OS X. Internet of Things is done with RAD Studio, Delphi, and C++ Builder. The beacon components are in there as well, so you can just drop these components down there and connect to beacons. So like I said, beacons are used for proximity. So people are using them in stores. So maybe you go into the store and you can maybe get an ad for something you're looking at. It can say, oh, I know where you're standing, and give you an ad. Or you can say, where the heck are the shoes? And it can say, oh, what type of shoes do you want? You tell it what type of shoes. And it says, just turn left, go down this aisle, turn right, and you're at the shoes, because it is able to triangulate your position based on indoor beacons proximity. I was just talking to someone who builds safety software for nuclear power plants. And they said that one of the problems is that people are using these smart devices, their phones and tablets, to do the safety inspections in a nuclear power plant. But they discovered people are not going out to do this. They're just sitting at their desk or even connecting from home and checking, yep, I did my safety inspections, and there's no way for them to know. So what they're doing is they're installing beacons in the nuclear power plant, and so they can tell exactly where the technician is at, whether they're within centimeters of where they should be to do their safety inspection. And when they check it off on the iPad or Android, it will know where they were. And of course, it's all being developed in Delphi. Linux servers. Linux has been around for a long time, continuing to get more and more momentum. Recently, Microsoft has started to embrace and promote Linux server technology. Microsoft says they love Linux. So you know Linux is big when finally Microsoft, who's fought it for years, is saying, hey, Linux is here. We love Linux. It's great. So according to w3cook.com, they checked the top 1 million web servers for what kind of server they're using based on their header, the host header that's reported. And they say that 96.6% of all the top 1 million servers are running Linux. And then what's left is split between Windows and FreeBSD. That's a lot of Linux servers. Linux servers tend to be cheaper and more flexible than Windows servers. So Linux is really important, especially in the server side technology. And that is why the upcoming version of Delphi and C++ Builder, the Guardzilla release, that's the code name for it, is bringing Linux server technology. All of our server technologies, whether it be RAD server or DataSnap or web broker or whatever, FireDAC data access, all that server-side components will be working on Linux, 64-bit Intel Linux servers. So one thing that's cool that's changed recently is the beta program. Previously, the beta program, you don't talk about the beta program. Just at some point, oh, look, there's a release. And apparently there must have been a beta, but no one ever heard anything about it. Well, that's changed. With Update subscription, everybody that buys one of the recent versions gets Update subscription for a year. It's built in. So part of one of the benefits of update subscription is you get access to the beta. You're invited to join the beta. Now, when you're in the beta, you're still under NDA, so you can't talk about what's going on with the beta, but it's now open to a huge number of people to participate in the beta. So this is great because we get more feedback during the beta process, plus it helps you be more prepared for what's coming in the future. So if Linux servers are important to you, get on a recent version, get update subscription, and join the beta. So moving forward, what are some resources for migration? Clearly, you see the importance of what's changed over the years and why this is all relevant to you. You don't want to get left behind. That's why you need to migrate and move forward. We have a migration center set up, which you can get to at embt.co/migration center, or if you just go to Embarcadero.com, under resources, you'll find the migration center. This has resources for moving to Unicode, which Unicode's a while ago, everybody moved to Unicode. Everything on Windows is Unicode. Everything on every platform, everything on the internet is Unicode. Unicode is everywhere. It is the text encoding that's out there. The idea of non-Unicode text is gone. 64-bit support. So just like Delphi 1 was 16-bit, Delphi 2 was 32-bit. Now Delphi supports both 32-bit and 64-bit. So if you want to make sure your code's compatible with 64-bit, we have resources available for that. If you're still using an old data access framework, we have tools that will make the transition really smooth so that you can move up to FireDAC and start taking advantage of those huge speed improvements as well as amazing features. And if you are using some third-party components that maybe are holding you behind, we have some resources there to help you move forward. So check out that migration center so that you can move forward into the future and start taking advantage of all these great technologies. And of course, you're going to want to upgrade to Berlin, our latest release of Delphi C++ Builder and RAD Studio. And now is the best time. I mean, the present is always the best time, but I think December may be the best time of the year to do this. We have so many amazing special offers right now. The first one, we call it our amnesty or upgrade amnesty. Essentially, most of the time, you can only upgrade from the past few versions to the latest version, get upgrade pricing. But right now, you can upgrade from any previous version of Delphi C++ Builder or RAD Studio. All the way back to Delphi 1, I guess. Maybe Turbo Pascal. I don't know. Talk to sales. They'll give you the details. Or you can check out RAD Offer. Although realistically, talk to sales. They're able to figure this out and make all the arrangements that are necessary. But that can get you, we also have a bonus on top of that. You can get 20% off Architect with RAD Server Site license, or 15% off Enterprise, plus 15 months of update subscription, which is longer update subscription than normal, or you can get 10% off Professional. And then all of those include the free RAD bonus pack. And if you buy a 50 user Interbase server license, you get an unlimited Interbase to Go license. Interbase to Go being the embeddable version of Interbase. So, wow. If you are not on the latest version and you just sit through this webinar, you owe it to yourself to contact sales and find out about upgrading before these special offers run out. Clearly, you can see the importance of updating, of modernizing, and staying relevant, keeping your code relevant, keeping your skills relevant, and keeping your tools relevant. So talk to sales and take advantage of these special offers. Thank you so much for your time. I realized Nick was gone for part of it, but he's here now for the Q&A. So if you're watching us live, go ahead and put your questions in the GoToWebinar question panel, and we'll get them answered for you. Otherwise, please do shoot us an email. There's our email addresses on the screen, nick.hodges or jim.mckeith@embarcadero.com.
Okay, so there are any questions. We do have some questions here, and sorry about losing your audio on there.
That's all right.
Great stuff going on, but I tried to remember your pertinent and shared them anyway.
No problem.
Thing about the guy, was your friend, not your neighbor, that got the new house, right, with the refrigerator?
Yeah, he got a new house and he can talk to his stove.
His stove?
Like you said. Yep.
Yeah. So the question here about the Universal Windows Platform Bridge, the desktop bridge. Could you use it to transfer a Windows 10 desktop application to a Windows 10 mobile application?
I don't believe that's the case. What you can do, what's that?
Go ahead.
What you can do is you can create an APPX file that will upload to and be part of the Windows Store, but I don't think you can transfer it to be a Windows mobile application.
Yeah, it'll still be a desktop. It'll just be a UWP desktop application.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Microsoft has really started downplaying their mobile lately. A lot of the analysts are saying that they have like a 1% of the market, and
Yeah, Windows Phone is not breaking any sales records.
no. So here's a question here: when making an AppX in Windows, do we have the choice to include info on logos, databases, extra files, etc.?
Yes, you do. You can package all that stuff up into a single APPX file. Yes.
Exactly. And if you just go into the deployment manager, and from there you can add and remove things from the package, from the bundle. So you can change the graphics, the default graphics, add additional resources. You can actually, I believe, you can technically have two different EXEs in there if your program calls a different program. So yeah, you can bundle.
Yep. You could.
It does include a signing process. Although if you're distributing it through Microsoft Store, they do the signing. You're going through Windows Store, but if you're distributing it through your website or some other mechanism, then you can do your own signing yourself. It's actually required to be signed by a certificate.
Yes.
In the background. So is RAD Server limited by the amount of active users?
Depends on how you license it. You can license it by a specific number of users if you don't have a lot of users, or you can buy an unlimited user license. So the answer is yes and no to your question. It depends on which licensing model you choose to go with, whichever one works better for you.
So the question here, can you make these client-server applications look as a proper Windows 10 application? I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but yeah, you can make it. It has all the stuff you need to make everything look like a proper Windows 10 application, because it will be a Windows application.
It will be a Windows 10 application, and then there's actually styles that you can use too if you want to really go for it.
Richard said that as I put it, the RAD server and REST is mind-blowing. Yes, I agree.
Agreed.
Is that seriously? If I'm doing a demo to somebody that's not familiar with Delphi, that REST demo that I showed there, where I just build a REST client in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's like,
That's
it's like,
pretty
okay.
cool.
It's just, that blows everybody away.
Indeed.
Can FireDAC access a paradox database?
Wow, I don't think so.
So it can, FireDAC, it has the ability to use DB Express. So accessing Express can. So then you can use technically DB Express to access a Paradox database. But directly, no, there's no, because Paradox is essentially deprecated at this point. There is nothing put into accessing those databases directly. So.
Okay.
Or ODBC. So via DB Express. So Eduardo is saying that cool information. What is available again to like taking a sip from the fire hose? Yeah. So we covered a lot today. Like I said, they'll have the slides in the replay available for you if you do want to digest this in smaller portions. Or really, the objective today was to kind of show you why you need to move forward and some of what the potential is. And then you can go to the Migration Center and our doc wiki to get those tutorials and tiny bits that you need in order to move forward and start taking advantage of it. Actually, we're going to have another migration webinar in the near future as well that's going to go through a lot more details on some of the stuff you can do for migrating. So stay tuned.
Sure. Yep, very easy.
So, Nick, maybe you want to talk about the additions of Delphi that will include Linux Server.
Linux Server will be included with Enterprise and Architect. It is an enterprise level feature since it only has server-side stuff, server-side capabilities, so it'll be in the enterprise and above SKUs.
So the current amnesty program, that includes Delphi 6 and 7 as well, correct?
Yes, it does. Current program does. So act now.
Yeah,
Before it's too late.
There's a few times a year that it's like the best time to upgrade. Although so it used to be some people occasionally would play this game where they only upgraded when the good offers were, but now with the update subscription that you get in there, once you get on it, just stay on it because you save so much money in the long run by just maintaining your update subscription.
And you get all the great features.
Yeah, so it's a good idea to just upgrade now and stay current. So to test Android and iOS, do you need to have a device connected?
It's probably best, yes. You can use the simulator, which is notoriously slow, but having a device is usually the best way to go.
My typical mobile development scenario is I build for Windows. So I design it as if it's going to be on mobile, but I build it and run it on Windows until I get the UI laid out like I want. I can start connecting to the databases and REST services and stuff like that. All that Windows, fast turnaround time. And then I start deploying it to the device to start testing device-specific functionality. But the reality is, until you actually run your app on a device, you have no idea how it's going to behave. Just because the screens are going to be different sizes, and you're going to say, "Oh, wow, if I try and touch that button, that's way too small for that," or whatever the case is. You really need to have that experience of the app running on the device to really know how it's going to behave. Now, you can be really productive. I didn't show you the ability to preview it on multiple form factors at the same time. All that stuff's great, and you're way more productive, but the reality is until you get it on a device, you just really don't you don't know how it's going to be done. So the question here about why Jedi is not included in the Get It package manager, which is the latest version of Delphi. Actually, if I understand correctly, it was a matter of being able to get it in time. So it's I think we're trying to get it back in the package manager, but was it just an updating timing?
It's just a matter of processing it and getting it in there.
Where can we find detailed license information for RAD server deployment?
Should be on the website, or contact your salesperson. I think the website has a pretty good rundown on what the licensing is. It's pretty straightforward, and if you have any special needs, please do contact your salesperson, and I'm sure they can work with you.
So Russell's asking for the best tutorial for getting started with FireDAC.
Boy,
there's quite a bit of tutorials in the Doc Wiki.
Yep, Doc Wiki's got a lot of good stuff.
Which is docwiki.embarcadero.com, or look for the FireDAC skill sprints. So we did a series of skill sprints, which were short 15-minute presentations around different features of FireDAC, and one of them was a getting started one. There's also just Code Rage 10. You do a search for Code Rage X or XI. I'm sorry, 11. Code Rage 11. Oh my goodness. We had a number of 2 different sessions on getting started with FireDAC as well. So check those out. You can just do a Google search for Code Rage XI FireDAC, and you probably can find them. So someone's asking about how many companies use Delphi. Says there's not a lot of openings on LinkedIn. What I've found is I've been to the Delphi Developer Days, which actually Nick, you were a speaker at this year.
Yep.
And there always are people there that are looking to hire Delphi developers. It seems like they're always like, I can't find Delphi developers, and the Delphi developers, I can't find jobs. The reality is that the Delphi developers tend to get the jobs filled quickly, and they just tend to get filled up, and you don't need as many Delphi developers to get a job done as you do C# developers. So there are people out there using it, a lot of people out there using it, and a lot of companies are hiring people, and they're there. It's just hard to find. There's that new Delphi job site, too, though.
Yep.
I can't remember what it's called. If you go to community website, community.embarcadero.com, under resources, there's a link, I believe, for Delphi job board. So, is there an interbase server license needed to deploy RAD Server?
No, that comes with RAD Server.
Yeah.
It is an interbase backend, but it all deploys together, and you don't need a license. It comes embedded.
So, it's important to note, though, RAD Server can connect to any database, but the user management is done through interbase. So you
Correct.
can do an Oracle database, but then the interbase is does all the management side of things. So there's a question here. If you're connecting to a REST endpoint and the JSON data contains a URL to images, how do you display those in the live binding designer to a list view? There is a sample we ship and a tutorial and documentation of the DocWiki on a custom list view that I believe shows how to do that. Also, you could take a look at the Fireflow. Yeah, Fireflow. It shows how to do that through live binding as well.
Thanks, Jim. I didn't know.
You might be interested. So JD saying you might be interested that I got my start with Delphi 1 and got it for free. I'd like to watch the FireDAC section again. Is it going to be posted anywhere? Yes, it will be, but do check out. Actually, I pulled that sample from my FireDAC skill sprint. So if you want to see more about FireDAC, look for the FireDAC skill sprints. That will show you, that has that sample in it, which explains it a lot more, and then a whole lot more. So there's a lot of resources out there for FireDAC. If you go to our Google channel, Embarcadero TechNet, or I'm sorry, YouTube channel, Embarcadero TechNet, you can find those there. Community.embarcadero.com and docwiki.embarcadero.com are all great resources for you. So there's a question here. Is RAD Server a separate product to RAD Studio Berlin, or is it included?
It is a separate product that you have to purchase if you want to deploy. RAD Server is that deployment. RAD Studio includes the ability to build plugins at the enterprise and above level. It adds the ability to provide plugins for the RAD server, but only at the developer server. So you have to, if you want to deploy for actual use, you have to buy a license for RAD server. So it is a separate product in that regard. It's part of RAD Studio in that you can build plugins for RAD server with RAD Studio Enterprise and above.
All right, so
hope that made sense.
It made sense to me, so hopefully. Get questions. How do we sign up for the Guardzilla beta? Everybody wants to get a hold of Linux in the beta. What do they do?
You become an update subscription member, and you'll be invited to the beta.
Wow, I get a lot of people asking about upgrading from different versions of Delphi. Yes, if you
can
have
upgrade from any version right now, so make your move.
Yeah, the replay will be available soon. When will we code for Apple Watch? That's an interesting question. So it turns out you can develop apps for Apple Watch now, but Apple won't let you put it in the App Store unless it's in bitcode format, an intermediary format based on LLVM. Now, we're using LLVM, but Apple doesn't have an official spec of what that bitcode format looks like. So it's kind of a nebulous moving target to try and figure that out, and we just have not nailed that down and put that on the roadmap yet. So keep an eye out for the developer survey when we do that, and let them know if that's important to you, the Apple Watch, and if it is important enough people, then we can put it on the roadmap. But until then, it's not. Any proper multi-touch screen support on VCL, including angle of gesture. So yeah, VCL does have multi-touch. What's that?
We have multi-touch, but we don't have things like angle of gesture. I know what he's talking about. We're investigating that and looking at putting that on the roadmap to adding that capability, because we know how much Surface pads are taken off.
Okay, cool. FYI, I did a Berlin Android course in the Netherlands, had Android debugging issue on borrowed Samsung SE5, deployed work, but breakpoints didn't. So there is a hotfix for Android debugging, or Samsung debugging. So Samsung changed some things with the way their things connected over the ADB, and there is a hotfix you can find, and that everybody I've talked to that's like, I keep running into this Android debugging issue, and the Samsung debugging issue, and if they install the hotfix, it's like, oh, it works now. So look for that hotfix, the Samsung hotfix for Android, and that should fix the problem for you, Peter. Any book suggestions for mobile development using Android? As a matter of fact,
on Delphi,
there is the Danielle Tate did his FireMonkey cookbook. I think it is. He has second edition just came out. It's a.
He does have some Android development in there. Yes, he does. I believe.
Yeah, so it covers FireMonkey in general, which has some stuff around with Android. There's a lot of resources on our doc wiki. You could print out the doc wiki. You'd have a book there. There's so much content in there. There can be tutorials and references and such. So check that out. Eduardo's asking, any hope of making VCL graphics migrate to FireMonkey graphics? Some examples from Embarcadero are VCL, like accessing pixels, etc., or maybe samples of VCL graphics and FMX graphics.
That's a tough question. I'm not exactly sure what you're after. If you're looking to migrate VCL to FireMonkey, there are tools that can help you do that, but the VCL and FireMonkey frameworks are very different, particularly in the way they handle graphics, so I'm not sure there will be a way to migrate graphical code between the two of them.
Yeah, there's some differences in how it's approached. There are some examples out there that show a lot of this cool stuff you can do with FireMonkey graphics, but it is a different approach just because there's a different underlying system there. So here's another RAD server question. Apparently a lot of excitement around the RAD server. Does RAD server do HTTPS, so secure HTTP? And it does. So the deployment for RAD server for production purposes is as an ASAPI module. And the reason for that, there's multiple reasons for that. One reason is that the IIS is running at a lower level than applications do. HTTP6, I believe is what it's called, and it gives it a higher performance. And so by deploying RAD server through ASAPI, you get more performance. But then also, IIS can manage the SSL certificates for you to do secure socket HTTP encryption. So all that's handled through IIS. Yes, so yes, it does, is the short answer. The long answer is through IIS. Joyce is saying that during Code Rage 11, she saw that Carrie had a FireDAC book, but she hasn't found it online yet. I believe he's still working on that, isn't he?
He's still working on that, and he expects to have it ready in the spring, yeah.
That's going to be a really awesome book. I'm looking forward to that one.
Will be good. Carrie's a great writer.
With if you have Berlin Enterprise, and you want to test RAD server with your components, that's included in the package, correct?
Correct. It's called EMS server in RAD Studio, actually.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So EMS is the internals of RAD server, I guess you could say.
Yes.
So here's a question about list view and image to list view using Live Bindings Designer. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. It depends. Can you connect an image to a list view using the Live Bindings Designer?
I don't know. I do not know.
Think. I know if it's coming from a database and the database has the image as in an image column, I believe it works under that situation. And gosh, I don't remember. There's a whole lot of actually really powerful stuff under the Live Bindings is one of those things that's at the surface is really simple, but then you can get right under the surface and there's a whole lot of power and flexibility you can do around it to really elevate it. And so if you look into Live Bindings, there were some skill sprints around Live Bindings and some Code Rage sessions around Live Bindings, and they will show you some more details on how you can get stuff like that. So maybe. what is the best way to remove the Jedi library? I think there's an uninstall you can run if you want to
Yeah,
remove
they
it.
have a really powerful installer and uninstaller that you should be able to remove it very easily.
Okay, so Oleg's saying that the upgrade says it's for registered owners of Delphi 6, XE6 or later. That's the typical scenario, but right now we have the promotion going on where you can upgrade from any previous version.
That's correct.
Are there? Al's asking if there's plans to support Couchbase. Maybe.
We're always looking at new and exciting databases to support using FireDAC.
Yep. So in the developer survey, indicate Couchbase is important to you if it is, and it might show up on the roadmap. Plans for Apache support for a RAD server.
Yes, we plan on having RAD Server running on Linux, absolutely, and
Yep.
being able to build RAD Server extensions for it using Delphi and C++ Builder.
So Shane's asking, of what we showed today, how much is available in professional versus enterprise?
Um,
A lot of it is. The Windows 10,
Windows
Is-
10 stuff is.
the REST client is in professional.
Mm-hmm.
The mobile, you can get the mobile add-on pack for professional.
You can buy you can buy the mobile add-on pack to do all the mobile stuff that Jim showed.
FireDAC is available in professional, but only for local databases. So
Local database connectivity. That's correct.
yeah. So like SQLite, I can't remember which ones it are. It is specifically
Interbase to go, I think.
Interbase, yeah. And then there's a client-server add-on pack you can get for FireDAC as well that will give you access to remote databases.
Correct.
So most of what we showed, RAD server is not available in there, and
DataSnap is not. DataSnap is an enterprise feature.
then the Linux server is not.
Linux server development is an enterprise feature. Yes.
Okay, couple more questions here. Any examples or components using Swagger? Actually, there are. We had a webinar a while back specifically on Swagger with RAD Server. Do you know the details on that, Nick? I confess
I
I'm not.
don't. I'm afraid.
Yeah, we do have
Sorry.
there was a session on that, and we're talking about having another one on that. So if you take a look, we should have some documentation in the doc wiki and some webinars that we've covered in the past. Okay, I think we've gotten through the majority of the questions we can answer now. If you do have questions we weren't able to get to, some of these are more involved than we can answer right now. Do send us an email. Our email addresses should be still up on the screen for everybody.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear from you, and we'll get back to you. Any last words, Nick, since I put a lot of words in your mouth during the second half there when I lost you?
No. Just if you are looking to upgrade, now is the best time to do so. And I encourage you to do it before the end of the year.
If you're still on the call with us, if what we're talking about is interesting to you, it's worth your time. For the amount of time you've spent on this call, you could have been upgraded and be taking advantage of these new features now and migrating your code. So if this is of interest to you, then definitely talk to sales and get upgraded. You're welcome, Jay. Thanks for joining us. Jay is on the just said thanks. It's good to see you. Is Git going to support paid components or IDE plugins for other developer tools? We are always looking to expand Git. I'm not sure if you want to talk about anything specific on that, Nick.
We are always looking to expand Get It. As far as paid tools, we're still investigating that, looking into that. That's something we're not sure we want to get into or not, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, there are, I guess, a trialware type stuff in there now, so that you can go and get the trial, start using it, and then if you decide, you can buy it directly from the vendor. But there's a lot of complications around opening a component store. So
yes, there are, and we're not sure that's what we want. That's not sure. We're not. I shouldn't say we're not sure. We are considering it, but there are a lot of considerations.
exactly. And then another question here: can you upgrade from Delphi 2? Yes. Talk to sales, and right now, if you do it this month, so you don't got a lot of time yet left. Talk to sales, and they'll get you upgraded from Delphi 2. So, And
Yes.
you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. The amnesty is something we usually do around this time of year, but it might be something we might not be doing again in the future. I believe because of how many people create subscriptions. So really, if you're on an old version of Delphi, call sales and get upgraded. Get on to subscription, and you're going to save so much money in the long run, and you're going to keep your code and your skills and your tools so much more relevant.
Indeed. Absolutely. No time like the present, as you said.
Exactly. And you know what? Don't wait for Santa Claus. Get yourself a Christmas present now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Put yourself on the nice list by buying Berlin today.
Yeah. And one final question here I see, yes, you can upgrade from Delphi 2 during this special program. So make your move.
Yes, absolutely.
Carlson Kim.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for your time and for your interest. And do stay tuned to your email. We'll get you slides and replay available soon via email, and then also have them posted on our website at community.embarcadero.com. That's really the core hub for all the stuff we're putting out here, blog posts, replays from Code Rage, etc. You can find all that stuff on community.embarcadero.com. If you do want to take advantage of some of these special offers and upgrade, that's embarcadero.com/radoffer, RADOFFER, or just call and talk to sales. RAD offers, it's great information, but you call and talk to sales, and they're going to put it all together for you in the best possible.
They'll take care of you. Don't you worry about that.
That's right. So thank you so much, and hopefully you all have a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye-bye.